have negative self-talk. You know, I grew up in a low socioeconomic area, so my negative self-talk is, what would you know? You're a dumb blonde from the boondocks. You don't know anything.
Well, everyone has been forced into adjusting to Zoom presentations the past 2 years, and it looks like the post-COVID workforce, they're going to remain a fixture. Tracey Spicer, as a professional broadcaster and a former TV newsreader, what is your biggest tip when it comes to the actual setup with your laptop or your phone?
Yes, we've all been undergroomed and over-Zoomed for the last 18 months, so I'd like to share a few tips and tricks about how you can improve your home setup to make it look a little bit more professional now that it's going to be embedded. One thing is to try to get the lens of your device as close to eye height as possible. It's important because if the lens is too high, you're looking up to the audience, almost like you're begging them to listen to you. And if the lens is too low, you're looking down on the audience in a way that can be viewed as patronising. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to think about your background. Now, you don't have to have a fancy fake or real Zoom background. You don't have to have a colour-coded bookshelf, but just try to have something neat in the background and not too much mess. You want people looking at your face, not what's in the background. Then the third thing is lighting. Sure, you can go out and buy one of those fancy ring lights, but as long as you've got light on your face rather than behind you, and that light on your face can be an old-fashioned lamp that you've put behind your device, it can be some windows in front of you. The most important thing is to not have too much light behind you because it can make you silhouetted.
When you're talking about the eye level, when you're on a Zoom call and there's a lot of people on the call, I've got this very amateur instinct where I'll be talking to them and I'm literally talking to their face, which of course is nowhere near the actual lens. I believe your advice is to embrace that green light and stare down the lens.
Yeah, and look, it's not an amateur instinct at all. We all seek out what's called the cybernetic feedback loop. Like how you and I are talking, I know it sounds very technical and formal, very fancy, not fancy at all. It's really just wanting to look into the eyes of the other person like you and I are now. I can see your facial expressions, I can see that you're nodding, I'm getting non-verbal feedback that you're listening to me, you're communicating with me, you're absorbing my message. When you look at the lens, you don't have that, and that's why you want to look at the screen. But unfortunately, to reach your audience, you have to look at that little black dot. And if you struggle with that, I've got a good tip. Put some sticky post-it notes around the lens with arrows drawn on them to remind you to get your eyes off the screen and to look at the camera.
Like an X marks the spot sort of scenario.
It's exactly right. That's where your treasure is.
And then what about background noise? So what if the dog starts barking? That's happened to me. Everyone I've had a Zoom call within the last 2 years now knows Gizmo very well because I'm going, Gizmo, be quiet. I'm guessing that's probably a Zoom no. Don't yell at your dog or mute yourself before you do. What should we do if you're in the middle of a presentation or even a big call with colleagues and there is background? Obviously, a lot of people have had homeschooling children bursting into the room unwanted.
Oh yeah, I've had the two teenagers fighting in the background. We've all had that, right? And we don't have professional TV studios that are soundproofed at home. So I reckon a good piece of advice is at the start of a meeting or a presentation, particularly if it's something where there's a lot hanging on this, you know, be really candid and say to the audience and whoever you're talking to, look, we're doing this from home. You might see a child walk in the background. You might see my dog walk in the background. That's okay. We all understand this these days. This is the new normal. And then you kind of talk about the elephant in the room. And then when it does happen, you're less thrown by it because you've kind of said that to people. You've ripped the Band-Aid off. You've warned them. And the other thing is people don't mind it. What we're seeing is more of people's home environments, which helps us understand more about who they are as people, which is a really nice thing.
Finally, Tracey, I just wanted to talk about your hack for people that might be feeling a bit self-conscious, particularly if they are being called upon to present. It is a little intimidating talking down a lens. What's your advice?
You're talking to someone who fainted twice on television the first time I tried to do Metropolitan TV in Melbourne in the early Cro-Magnon era. So I get the nerves, I get the fear and the self-consciousness. It's good to find the third space before you do any kind of presenting or meeting. And that's basically just a 3-step process to centre yourself before you go on camera. First step, do 10 deep breaths to calm your mind and reduce cortisol, which is the stress hormone. Second step, have some positive mantras in your head. We all have negative self-talk. You know, I grew up in a low socioeconomic area, so my negative self-talk is, what would you know? You're a dumb blonde from the Boondocks. You don't know anything. So I replace that with, look, you've done your research, you're the expert in this space, your information could help people. So that's the second step. The third step is to do something physically with your body to make yourself feel more confident. Before you go on camera, whether it's at home or in a fancy kind of environment in a studio, stand there with your hands on your hips like Wonder Woman, or your arms up in the air like you're crossing a finish line in a running race. Anything really to make yourself look bigger will make you feel bigger and more powerful and therefore more confident before you go on to perform. It'll reduce your nerves dramatically. But you know what, overarching all that, the most important thing is to remember to be yourself. You don't have to worry if you stumble over a word or say an or an R. We're moving into the era of robots, so we want heart-to-heart human communication with people, even over Zoom. Be your lovely self, and that'll be your greatest success.
Be yourself. That is some great advice, Tracey. Thank you so much. I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say we feel like we're ready for our Zoom close-up now.
Thank you. I can't wait to see Gizmo on camera again.
Thanks again, Tracey.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thanks for watching Body and Soul TV. Click the subscribe button to make sure you never miss a video.